Welcome to Destination Michigan. We celebrate the people and places that make Michigan a great place to live. Sit back and enjoy tonight's edition of Destination Michigan.
Support for Destination Michigan is provided by the CMU Bookstore. T-shirts, sweatshirts, hats, maroon and gold memories, and an official outfitter of Adidas apparel at the Central Michigan University owned and operated CMU Bookstore. Online shopping 7 days a week at cmubookstore.com. The CMU Bookstore, online at cmubookstore.com, on campus in the University Center, and game day locations at Kelly Short Stadium and the CMU Events Center. And by Country Smokehouse in Elmont, offering a selection of gourmet meats including homemade sausage and jerky. Also available, custom catering and weekend outdoor barbecues. Information at countrysmokehouse.com.
Tonight on Destination Michigan.
They don't fly for us, but we have them here, and if Santa needs to come get some extras, he's welcome to come borrow some.
We'll jump in the sleigh and take a ride with some of Santa's friends at Rooftop Landing Reindeer Farm in Clare.
People think about the cultural projects and history and that, but it also involves just a lot of other things that most broadly defined make us human.
They promote cultural events and programs in our local communities. We'll visit with the Michigan Humanities Council in Lansing.
A plateful of heaven brought down to Michigan.
They are just doggone good. The unique history of the coney dog in Michigan. The sights and sounds of Isabella County's Deerfield Park. Hello and welcome to Destination Michigan. To kick off tonight's episode, we string up some holiday lights, break out the eggnog, and say hello to Sarah Adams, who introduces us to some friends of Santa's that she recently met.
That's right, Kurt, and thankfully we didn't have to travel all the way to the North Pole to meet them. They actually make their home right here in our own backyard. Tonight we're taking a sleigh ride to Clare for a visit to Rooftop Landing Reindeer Farm as we kick off this episode of Destination Michigan. Today, these students at St. Michael's School in Remus are in for a treat as they come face to face with real live reindeer.
This is the mama. Her name is Noelle. Yeah, how about those feet? See those big feet? Well, of course, all the kids want to know, can they fly? And of course, only Santa has that magic dust for the reindeer to fly. They don't fly for us, but we have them here, and if Santa needs to come get some extras, he's welcome to come borrow some.
That's Dave Aldridge, owner of Rooftop Landing Reindeer Farms in Clare. And while today's visit to St. Michael's School is a unique experience for these kids, it's actually just another day in the life of the Aldridge family.
It is a lot of fun. We have probably more fun than anybody at Christmas time because we're in 100 and some Christmas events, you know. But it is a lot of work. It's 12 months a year. I haven't had a vacation in 20 years. During the winter, of course, we're on the road every day, 16, 18, 20 hours a day for about 7 weeks, traveling all over the state.
Dave invited us back to the farm to learn a little bit more about these beautiful animals and see just what goes into owning reindeer. For Dave and his family, it all started about 20 years ago.
I started raising exotic deer, eventually got a couple of reindeer, and once I figured out how intelligent they were, I soon got rid of everything else. We got rid of all the rest of the deer and the horses and the goats and everything else we had. Just concentrated on reindeer. They are a very intelligent animal. So we began by having local schools that come out to visit with the reindeer. Pretty soon there was 2 or 3 classes come out, and then there were 6 or 8 classes coming out. So I said, well, if we're going to show them to the kids, we're going to take them to the schools. And that's how it started, and then it was the businesses would call, and then somebody's having a parade in some town, and it just developed from there. And we've probably done well over 1,000 events since that time. When I say a reindeer is intelligent, Their mind is someplace between a horse and a dog. They're much, much different than white-tailed deer. They actually they can learn their names. They'll respond to simple voice commands. In that way, they're somewhat like a horse. They have an extremely good memory, like a horse does. The horse never forgets anything. It's the same with a reindeer.
There are lots of surprising facts about reindeer. For example, did you ever wonder about those giant antlers?
Both males and females have antlers. Now the male's antlers are much larger. It's more for show than anything else. It's the male with the biggest antler that attracts the females.
And it turns out reindeer aren't that great at parenting.
Reindeer are some of the worst mothers in the world. They'll lose 60% of their calves worldwide. And the first-time mothers generally will always lose their calf. Now here in the States, of course, we can prevent that because when we're with them, we monitor to make sure, first we milk the mother to make sure she's got enough milk. And then, is she allowing the baby to eat? If not, we just go ahead and pull them at about 4 hours, and we start bottle feeding them from that point. We try to introduce them back to the mom, see if she'll take it and start taking care of it. Most times they won't. So once you pull it to bottle it, it's pretty much yours for 4 months to bottle feed. You have to be very dedicated and willing to spend the time out in a cold barn at 5 o'clock in the morning.
It's obvious these animals are loved and cared for by a dedicated owner. In fact, Dave tells us that actually there are no reindeer in the wild.
All reindeer in the world are actually owned by somebody. They are raised in the Arctic areas, the Arctic regions, like we raise cattle out west. They turn them loose in the springtime, they round them up in the fall, they cull out what they want at that point, vaccinate them, do all that, turn them loose again. It's the same with reindeer. Where they come from, it gets 50, 60 degrees below zero in the wintertime. We do give them a lot of extra care in the summer because it does get hot, particularly this past summer here when it was in the 90s for so long. Of course, they shed out their winter coat. They have a very short coat, about 1/8 of an inch of hair in the summertime. But in the summer, they'll pretty much spend most of their days in the barn where it's cooler.
Now, if you're thinking about how great one of these reindeer would be for a pet, think again.
Well, the biggest thing is the amount of licensing and regulation involved. It is quite intense. I'm regulated by the U.S. Department of Agriculture, the Michigan DNR, and the Michigan Department of Agriculture. So we have to follow all those regulations, meet all those testing requirements. Reindeer have been domesticated for 5,000 years. Reindeer have been domesticated as long as horses have. We're not abusing these animals by taking them out in a parade. They're used to people. They're happier being out on the road than they are out here in the pasture.
And when they are out on the road, it's showtime as these reindeer tour the state of Michigan, delighting kids of all ages.
Most people have never seen one, let alone petted one. Of course, we get everybody at the events, you know, the kids and the parents and the grandparents and everything. Like I said, most people have never seen them before. So, you know, we get questions like, what are they? You know, are they elk or are they red deer or what are they? Most people don't think reindeer are real. They think they're a storybook creature. So we explain to them and let them pet them and stuff. The kids think that's natural, that it's a reindeer, but the adults, they aren't too sure. They really don't know what they are.
But what is the best part of all of this for Dave Aldrich?
But we all go out and we got friends that help us year after year, the same group of people. And we have a lot of fun doing it. And it's just really a good time. It's a good life. You just have to be very dedicated.
You can learn more about Rooftop Landing Reindeer Farm and when they'll be visiting your neighborhood by visiting their website, rooftopreindeer.com. And while you're there, you can also check out their live webcam of the reindeer. Kurt?
All right, thanks, Sarah. Next up, we introduce you to the people who introduce us to Michigan's great cultural events and programs that you can only find in our great state. For nearly 40 years, the Michigan Humanities Council has been providing grants to communities and nonprofits to bring great programs right to your front door. To Lansing we go to visit with the Michigan Humanities Council as we roll on with tonight's edition of Destination Michigan.
People seem often confused about what humanities are. People think about the cultural projects and history and that, but it also involves just a lot of other things that most broadly defined make us human. And though it might not be food and shelter and that type of thing, it's really things that are necessary to our lives. And we're talking about discussing and learning from our past and things like anthropology and archaeology, comparative religions, all of these things that really can focus on current events, our past, our future, and it's a very broad topic, often causes some confusion, but it's pretty much part of everything we do. The Humanities Council is one of 56 state and territorial councils in the country, and we were founded in 1974, so for about 40 years now the council's been providing cultural programs throughout the state. Our official mission is to connect people and communities by providing quality cultural programs, and so overall what we do to accomplish that mission is pretty much provide grant programs, and we have statewide programs that bring humanities initiatives to local communities too. Our major grant programs are the largest grants that we provide. They generally cover a period of a year to 18 months. They involve a lot of different types of projects. We fund documentaries, discussion groups, we have speaker series, we fund exhibits that are part of larger museums. We've also funded smaller exhibits, traveling exhibits that cover various aspects of Michigan history and culture. Our major grant programs require a scholar to be involved, a humanities scholar. We have to have people who are implementing the project that have the right qualifications for project director and fiscal officer. But the guiding principle in all of them really is that it has to bring a humanities project program to the community and be available free or at low cost, because the point is to actually make these opportunities available to the public. Those are our largest grants. They're up to $15,000. And in between that cycle, we do award the quick grants and the planning grants, and then implement our other program grants as well. The quick grants are actually up to $500. They're smaller grants that kind of fill in the gaps between our major grants, where a community may have a larger project that they need some support for, and we can also provide that on a quicker basis, as the name implies. Planning grants help communities plan for a larger project and for a larger grant application.
So I'll talk a little bit then about the council-initiated programs. So the Great Michigan Read, for example, is a statewide reading and discussion series that last year, the book that was chosen was called Arc of Justice, and it was about civil rights in the 1930s. And we touched over 1 million Michiganians with that through either public programs, newspaper inserts, teacher guides, readers' guides, but there were 1 million Michiganians engaged in that program. Another program is Primetime Family Reading, and that is a program targeted to families with low literacy. So it's a family reading program, and they're everywhere from Marquette in the UP to Morenci in the southeast part of the state. And then there are the Smithsonian traveling exhibits. And so the way we worked is a Smithsonian traveling exhibit about the history of the last 150 years of work in the United States. It's going to be in 6 rural communities in Michigan, starting in Rogers City and ending in Hart. So there are lots of opportunities to see that exhibit. So there are lots of programs.
A lot of what we fund involves discussion and reflection and looking at current events, things that have happened in the past related to our state's history or our country's history, and then learning from that and moving forward to a better future.
The Michigan Humanities Council is primarily funded through the National Endowment for the Humanities and private funding donors. For more information on the council, visit michiganhumanities.org. Our next stop has gone to the dogs, the coney dogs, that is. A plateful of heaven brought down to Michigan is how co-author of Coney Detroit, Joe Grimm, describes a coney dog. I would just describe them as doggone good. Tonight we join Joe and his favorite dog, the coney dog, to show us the unique history of a rich Michigan tradition. Courtney Brooks is our tour guide as we grab a plateful of heaven and head to your favorite coney dog restaurant as we serve you the main course on tonight's edition of Destination Michigan.
Michigan is the coney capital of the world. That is, according to authors Joe Grimm and Catherine Young of Coney, Detroit.
We have more Coney dogs and more Coney Island restaurants than any place in the world. We're inside Leo's Coney Island, which is part of the biggest chain. Leo's has 43 Coney Island restaurants, and that's followed by Kirby's and National, each of which has about 24 restaurants. So right there, you're looking at easily about 90 restaurants. And when you start to add the mom and pops and the small chains, we guesstimate, although we don't think anybody knows for sure, that Michigan has 500 Coney Island restaurants. That's amazing. Some states have just 1 or 2 places.
And if you're traveling in some of those other states and are craving a Coney, expect to order what out-of-staters call a Michigan.
If you're driving around in upstate New York or Vermont or that area around Ontario, you might see a place by the side of the road that says it sells Michigans. And if you pull in there and ask for a Michigan, you'll get what seems to you like a Coney dog.
Coney Islands have come a long way since their original arrival to the U.S. in the early 1900s. Starting a Coney Island was the American dream for immigrants who came to the States back then, and the popularity grew, mostly in Michigan.
We find that a lot of places claim origins back to 1914, 15, 17, 19, those years before 1920. But the real epicenter, if you will, of Coney Islands in Michigan is downtown Detroit at the juncture of Michigan Avenue and Lafayette Avenue, where the Caros family opened one and then a second Coney Island restaurant right next door, and then a third Coney Island right next door to that. And 2 of those survive today, American and Lafayette. And the Caros family still owns American Coney Island. Former employees run Lafayette. Leo, the person for whom this chain is named, Leo and his brother Pete started working, Leo first I think, at American Coney Island. So although Leo's is not an American Coney Island, it's its own thing, Leo and Pete Stasinopoulos are related to the Caros family, and many of these chains are related to the Caros family. So I would say it started there in downtown Detroit in the 1920s by the Caros family. Kirby's, by the way, stands for Caros Brothers. They're cousins of the original Coney people. And if you talk to many Coney owners, they're either related or they worked at American or Lafayette. So it all goes back to the Caros family. I would say that's where the Coney craze we know today really started. Maybe somebody had Coneys earlier, but those are the ones that really took off. In the early part of the century, before 1920, around 1920, we find Coney Islands in a lot of places, a lot of states, New Jersey, Florida, Indiana, Ohio. And we think what happened is, at that time, the economy was really lousy in Greece, kind of like today, I guess. And all kinds of Greek people immigrated to the United States for a better life. They came through Ellis Island, they went by Coney Island, they went out into the United States looking for work. It was hard to get a job if you had a language barrier and a really long last name. So a lot of Greek families started their own restaurants, and it was pretty easy to start a Coney Island restaurant. You just needed a grill, and a lot of people did it. But in Detroit, it just went gangbusters. The 1920s were packed with people building cars. Just before that, Henry Ford had started the $5 day, and people from all over the world flocked to Detroit. And when they got here, they were hungry, and they wanted a meal they could eat fast and that wouldn't be too expensive, and Coneys were perfect.
To this day, Michiganders still go to Coney Islands on their lunch breaks, and depending on what part of the Mitt they're in, they'll get a slightly different dog.
A lot of people love their local Coneys, and they don't know that there's more than one kind of Coney Island. In the Detroit area, a classic Coney is, it's delicious. It's a steamed bun, and the buns at many of these places are made by Metropolitan Bakery, which supplies its Coney steamers to lots of Coney Islands. The bun must be steamed, that is so good. And then you take a hot dog, it's a beef and pork hot dog, with a natural casing on it, so that when you bite it, it snaps. You grill that, you don't boil it. You could boil it and grill it, as some people do, but it's grilled. And then this is very important. On top of that, we put a beanless chili. It's an all-meat chili sauce. And then onions that are diced or minced. They can be Spanish or Vidalia, but they tend to be a white onion. And then ordinary garden variety yellow mustard. And that's your coney in Detroit. If you go to Flint and Jackson, you'll get a coney dog that is same kind of bun, same kind of hot dog, but the chili is different. It's really called a meat topping. It's not called a chili sauce. It's drier. It's not as runny. Some people in Flint look derisively at the Detroit style and say, oh, that's mostly just gravy. They like a meatier, drier topping on their coney dogs. One of the main ingredients in that is beef heart. A lot of people don't know that, but that's one of the ingredients there. And then if you go to farther out Michigan, if you go, for example, to Saginaw Bay City, you'll find coney dogs that are, they have a red sauce, they call it, and there's tomato in that sauce. There isn't in the Detroit style or the Flint style. And if you go toward western Michigan, around Grand Rapids and Rockford, you'll find a lot of people serving conies with pickles, which we would never do in Detroit. And nowhere in Michigan should anybody ever put ketchup on a coney dog. That could get you thrown out. So there's two main kinds of coney dogs, and I would call the tomato red sauce another kind, really not the same as a Detroit coney dog or a Flint coney dog, but popular in Saginaw Bay City.
And the different types of conies and family restaurant histories don't stop there. Coney Detroit showcases coney islands across the state, from Pontiac to Traverse City. And many of those restaurants make their conies with Michigan-made buns and other ingredients.
People have told me, though, that it's not just the ingredients, it's what you do with the ingredients. Like, how long do you cook it? How faithfully do you stir it? And you can, I could take the same ingredients and make something that wasn't right. So there's a technique to it. It's science, art and science, and love.
The royalties for Joe Grimm, Catherine Young, and the 12 photographers of Coney Detroit all go to Michigan's Gleaners Community Food Bank, and that is doggone good. Our final stop tonight is all about the beauty in our backyard. The state of Michigan has so many hidden gems, and more often than not, that gem is right around the corner. Tonight, videographer Matt Ozanek shows off the sights and sounds and tranquil beauty of Isabella County's Deerfield Park. And that is a wrap for tonight. But join us again next time for another edition of Destination Michigan.